abundantly clear that at least some White House officials had to be involved in him getting information here because they would need to help him access the complex?
I cannot get into who those individuals were.
Right, but it was someone at the White House. Right?
Well,
to help him out.
Again, if I start going down the path of confirming and denying one thing, that we're going down a very slippery slope.
So it's possible.
I'm not going to comment on all of the relevant.
Cloud, would it not be smart to have an outside independent investigation?
Well.
White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer refusing to comment on the New York Times report. Meanwhile, the fire under Chairman Nunes gets even hotter. Questions are mounting over possible collusion between Devin Nunes and the White House. At the same time Spicer was fielding questions on the report, the Senate Intelligence Committee was holding its first open hearing on Russian interference in the 2016 election. With me, Senator Ed Markey, Democrat from the great state of Massachusetts, who serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Greta.
Senator, I'm trying to figure out whether this is much ado about nothing and I'm sort of blowing it up, or if this is extremely serious. And, of course, Chairman Nunes' bizarre behavior makes me understandably suspicious. So tell me what you think.
Well, this is a jaw-dropping new set of information that has been made public. Devin Nunes went down to the White House, if the New York Times is accurate, and then was briefed by a former staffer of General Flynn, who met with the Russians in December, and with his own former staffer, who is now on the White House staff. If that's the case, then it's clear that there is an attempt to turn Devin Nunes from being the investigator of this Russian hacking into American elections and then into the Trump administration after they were elected, rather than being an investigator, to be a defender of the Trump administration, to be a shield against a charge that the Russians compromised the House and our elections. So this is historic now, and it actually smells of a cover-up that is being orchestrated out of the White House that drew Devin Nunes in to become part of that cover-up.
How do we get Chairman Nunes or the White House to just set the facts straight and to tell us? Because they've made this such a circus, and they made it so bizarre that we're distracted from health care, we're distracted from the underlying investigation on Russian interference. I mean, the behavior, assuming nothing sinister, they have made it sinister. They have made it totally sinister. If there's something sinister, well, then they are covering it up. But is there any way to sort of pry this out of it so we can at least get the facts and move on?
Well, right now, the only way that we're going to be able to pry the information out of them in a way that has credibility with the American public is through the investigation of the Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Richard Burr and Mark Warner. Because right now, what Devin Nunes has done is to compromise his own investigation. And I think Adam Schiff has pointed that out over and over again, that when you don't cooperate with the Democrats on a committee investigating the executive branch, you make it very clear that you are not interested in getting to a bipartisan solution or answer to the big questions on whether or not the Russians were engaging in their own get-out-the-vote operation. And, by the way, trying to compromise Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz as well. And then after the election, trying to compromise new White House appointees who would have a say in what our relationship was going to be with Russia and the sanctions which the United States has imposed upon the Russians. So I just don't think that, unfortunately, Devin Nunes any longer can play any kind of a credible role. He has to step out of the way. And now the Senate investigation steps front and center to be the only way we're going to have something which gives the answers to the American public.
Are you at all suspicious that the president himself is involved in any of this, or is this just people who work for him on his transition team or people at the White House? Do you assign any sort of responsibility, or do you think anything's going on with the president?
Well, we're getting to a what did the president know and when did he know it, now that we know that it's his own staffers who were briefing Devin Nunes. So this is getting closer and closer to the Oval Office. We don't know the answers, however. No one can say conclusively as to what, in fact, did happen. But we now have to be sure that those answers are given to the American public. Because
if you could ask one question of the president, what would it be on this?
it would be, what did you know about Paul Manafort and Michael Flynn and others in your campaign before the election in terms of their relationship and conversations with the Russians? And then, Mr. President, what did you know about Michael Flynn and others in your family and on your staff in their conversations with the Russians after the election in terms of what your policies would be as the president? And until we get those answers, we're not going to know how successful Vladimir Putin was in his ability to compromise our elections and then to compromise policies that could influence Russia in the years ahead.
Senator, thank you for joining us.